1. This story is the number one reason my electricity bill is so high. I keep every single light in the house on when my boyfriend isn't home now. I moved in with my boyfriend exactly 1 year ago tomorrow. We worked at the same place, and neither of us had a car. Work was a 20-minute walk from his house, and a 2-hour 30-minute walk from my house. So he was sweet enough to tell me to just move in, since I spent the night every night anyway. We worked 3 days a week scheduled, and overtime days we got to pick which days we wanted. Shifts were 7 p.m. to 7 a.m., and to anyone who had been watching our house, our regular pattern would be pretty obvious. Gone the same 3 days each week. Then I would pick the first optional day as my overtime day, and my boyfriend would work all the optional days, 6 days a week. Our fairly regular schedule is important. Several months before moving in with my boyfriend, I was in a terrible relationship with a disgusting piece of shit who abused me, and was finally removed from my home by police and taken to jail for 6 months. He got out the day before I moved in with my current boyfriend, and he was not happy, and started harassing me, started sending me death threats, and telling every mutual friend we had that he always carried a gun and would shoot me if he ever saw me. I got a restraining order, and although he couldn't harass me to my face, he started getting creative. He moved in with a girl who lived just around the block from me. After I'd begged her not to tell him where I moved to, she told him the same day I moved, and I'm 100% sure that is why he moved in with her. I believe he started watching my house and figured out my work schedule. One day I came home to find a teddy bear with a used condom around its head, placed in the middle of my driveway when I got home. I recognized it and knew for a fact it was a teddy bear he had given me months ago, that I had given back to his stepmom with the rest of his things when he was in jail. I was super creeped out and finally got a car, so on days when my boyfriend would work, I would drive him, then drive home, and when I came home, I always felt like someone was hiding behind a bush at the edge of our property. One day I finally looked behind the bush, and although no one was there, I found a crushed Nos can. Nos is a way too sweet but extremely cheap soda that my abusive ex was completely addicted to, and this made me even more sure he was spying on my house. After a couple of weeks of keeping all doors and windows locked, I switched up my schedule. Instead of taking day 1 for overtime, I took day 2, since I had a doctor's appointment day 1, and didn't want to be tired that night from missing sleep. My boyfriend worked every overtime day as usual. He likes making money and is willing to work hard for it. I took my babe to work and got home, and within minutes could tell something was wrong. The way my house is laid out, the front door is in the living room on the east. The kitchen is to the south, and the dining room is to the west of the kitchen, not visible at any angle from the living room, and has a back door. My normally quiet, docile cats were losing their minds, both making a lot of noise and both running back and forth from the dining room. One of our cats was mine, and one was his when my boyfriend and I met, and my abusive ex would abuse her as well, so up until the cops took him away, my kitty spent every minute on edge, usually trying to hide between my legs for protection like a toddler. That was the biggest warning sign I didn't realize. While his cat was going into the dining room meowing, my cat would look at the dining room, then turn back to me. Then I heard the back door slam. I thought I was going to have a heart attack. As I crept around the corner, I saw the dining room light was on, and the screen door was pulled open while the glass door was slid shut, and was unlocked. I know for a fact that the light was off, and both the glass and screen doors were shut, and the glass was locked when we left. My ex has since been arrested for breaking and entering a different house shortly after, and faces 8 years in prison. Since going back into custody, all the strange things around my house stopped. I've been terrified every single night by this. Obviously, he knew which days I would be gone, and I caught him off guard coming home that day. I keep thinking about what ifs. What if he hadn't fled when he heard me come home? What if he had made good on his death threats and promises to shoot me? I called the cops, and they said they couldn't do anything since I couldn't prove he was the one that broke in. Nasty, scumbag, piece of shit creeper. Let's never ever meet again, because if we do, I will have protection with me, and this time, you will be the one bruised and bleeding. Edit. I didn't mention it outright, but you picked up on it in the story. I wrote this yesterday because it was 1 year after the date my ex got out of jail. And today is 1 year to the day I moved in with my current boyfriend. 2. So about 10 or so years ago, me and my friend Eugene decided to go for a long trip to the sea by hitchhiking. We are both males, 18 or 19 years old by that time. We were living in my hometown, which is located in Siberia, which is central part of Russia. So we are hitchhiking to other cities from time to time for fun. But this time, we wanted to go for a long trip and spend some time by the sea with almost no money, since we were poor students by that time and couldn't afford to buy tickets and hotels. One night, we were on our way back home. The last driver left us near some cafe by the road. It was very dark and probably past midnight. We were pretty hungry, so we went inside the cafe to order some cheap meal. There were a few cars in the parking lot outside, and a few people inside eating. We took a table and started to eat our late dinner. Then my friend and I noticed some guy was sitting alone and kind of stared at us. It was a typical looking middle-aged Russian male, 30 or 40 years old. But we looked pretty unusual, especially for some middle of nowhere in Russia place like this. We had long hairs, strange clothes, and big travel bags. You know, that typical nomad traveler look, which was really unusual to see for many people in regions of Russia like this. So we were kinda okay with that. This guy finished his meal and left. We left about 10 minutes after he did. We began to think what to do next at this point. Try to catch someone else standing in lights of that cafe, or just go into the woods, camp and sleep. I was pretty tired and thought, we're probably done for today. But then we saw that guy from the cafe was kind of loitering around his car and smoking. My friend suggested maybe we can ask him to take us. We did it sometimes, trying to ask people to take us on stops like that. And it worked pretty well. So I thought, okay, we can do that. If not, we go to sleep. I told my friend, and he agreed. So we approached the guy, explained to him the situation, and asked if he can get us a ride, if he's going in the same direction. I don't remember what exactly he replied, but he agreed to take us. Just mentioned that he's not going far away, just 10 or so miles in our direction. We thought it's okay, and maybe we will find a better place to camp than near this cafe. So we put our bags in the trunk, and we got inside the car, both sitting at the rear seat. So my friend, as usual, tried to start a conversation. He was usually talking to drivers, since I'm not that talkative a person, but this guy was kind of strange. He wasn't really talkative too, answered with short phrases, constantly smoking and looking at us through the rear mirror. Then he started to ask weird questions like, do we travel without money at all, or do we have something at least, and how much have we got? He asked how old we are. At this point I thought maybe this guy wants to rob us, so we explained that we have something but really little money. Then we realized that he drove us more than 10 miles already for sure, and he is continuing driving on this night, dark road with almost no cars. By this point, our conversation ended, and we were riding in complete silence. I felt weird. I bet my friend did too, but we kept silent. At some point my friend asked, why we are riding for so long. The guy replied that he decided to give us a longer ride. Okay. We didn't turn from the main freeway, so it wasn't too much. After some time, he pulled off to another road cafe, finally, and said he was leaving us here. I was glad to finally hear it. But then he said he wants to ask us something. Actually, he wanted to ask my friend something. He let me go outside and open the trunk, so I got both our bags and was standing by the car while my friend and the driver were talking about something. I couldn't hear since the doors were closed. I was just standing there, holding our bags, and watching them talking probably for 5 minutes, when finally my friend got out the car, said bye to the guy, and he drove away. I started to ask him what happened, what the hell they were talking about for 5 minutes. My friend just told me, "I'll tell you later. I just want a cup of coffee now." He looked really pissed off. So when he finally got his coffee, he told me the guy was asking my friend if he, my friend, could fuck him, the driver. He offered him money. Then when my friend refused, he asked if I could do that, but my friend insisted I am not interested as well. So basically the guy was trying to convince him all this time. It was probably the only creepy story from all the time I was hitchhiking, and I'm glad nothing really bad happened to us, but creepy perv dude. Let's not meet again. 3. So before I begin, perhaps a bit of background information would help you understand my story. I am now a 20-year-old male living in the Netherlands, and I've been a geek all my life. Games in particular have always played a major role in my life, starting when I got my first PlayStation when I was 5 years old. Something about gaming just always got me. Be it mechanically or in terms of storytelling, I could always find something to love about it. As I grew older, I got more into RPGs, and eventually found my way onto World of Warcraft. As I got more involved in the game, I started joining raiding guilds. For those of you who don't know, it's basically a group of players who intent on facing the game's hardest content as a team. The second guild I joined was the greatest bloody team of people I had met thus far. One of these people was a Swedish girl who was around my age called Maggie. We got along nicely. As it turned out, her mom, who was also in this guild, was actually living in the Netherlands. So often, we'd end up in conversations where she asked me to teach her some Dutch, and she'd teach me some Swedish in return. It was all good fun. Fast forward to the beginning of 2013. The aforementioned guild had fallen apart a while back, and I had joined a new one. I stayed in touch with some people in the old guild, but Maggie really hadn't been online all that much. When she did get back online, we quickly caught up. It turned out that she actually moved in with her mother, and had spent the last couple of months improving her Dutch and attending a high school. She also started dating this guy called William, who was actually part of the same guild I had met Maggie in. He always struck me as a nice guy. Other guild members always thought he was a bit direct and perhaps rude, but being Dutch, I understood that's just simply how our culture works, so I was always okay with it. June comes around. Me and Maggie recently finished our final exams, and we're waiting for the results to come back in. One afternoon, while we were playing online, I suggested a meetup between the two of us. I really didn't have much to do, and given that she had voiced her concerns about finding her footing in Dutch social circles, I figured this was a nice opportunity to take her first baby steps into the country. She excitedly agreed and asked if she could bring William as well. Obviously I said yes, seeing as he was her boyfriend. Meetups are safer when you arrive as a couple, and meeting former guild members was something I was looking forward to anyway. A couple of days later, I met both of them in Rotterdam and had a great day. I showed them around the city, since I knew it best. Had some nice conversations, a few laughs, and we ended the day by taking a trip to Euromast. Before leaving, Maggie had to go to the bathroom, so me and William were waiting outside. Striking conversation, I said to him, "You two make for a nice couple." "Thanks," he replied. "I friggin' love her, you know. Honestly, wouldn't know what I would do without her at this stage. Back then, I didn't think much of that statement. It's just a thing people say when they are in love, so kudos to him, right? Maggie got out of the restroom. We said our goodbyes and we parted ways. A few weeks later, we got our exam scores back. I had passed high school with flying colours, but Maggie wasn't so lucky. She had failed most of her exams. She told me she was going to be studying for the rest of the summer in order to properly prepare for her rerun of the last year of high school. I told her that if she needed any help, then I was willing to see what I could do, even when I was going to college. She was very thankful, but assured me that she'd let me know if she needed any help. Fast forward again to September. After our last conversation, Maggie had practically disappeared off the internet. She hadn't logged into World of Warcraft. She was never on Skype, and wasn't even online on Facebook anymore. I had asked William in mid-August how she was doing, and he assured me she was fine, so I thought nothing of it. I even admired her focus on her education. However, during my second week in college, all of that changed. I got into the metro and picked up a free newspaper in the seat next to me to pass the time. I vividly remember turning to the 4th page to read the headline saying, "Swedish woman, 19, from city, stabbed in her own backyard." It took me a few seconds to even realize that she lived in that city now, and that she was 19. Even though the article didn't mention a name, I grew very concerned. I quickly sent her a text message, as we exchanged phone numbers when we met up, asking her if she was okay. The rest of the day went by, and I heard nothing from Maggie. I eventually figured that if anything had happened to her, people would have most likely started to post things on her Facebook page. Concerned and scared of what I was going to find, I started typing her name into the search bar of Facebook. Sure enough, it was already filling up with messages from people who had heard she passed away from her injuries. After inquiring with some other former guild members, it turned out William had stabbed her. She had broken up with him after she got her horrendous test results back, and he wasn't all too pleased with that. In the aftermath of this incident, me and some other Dutch guild members went to her city to meet up with her friends from school, attend the memorial set up in her school, and to put some flowers at the scene of the crime on behalf of everyone she had played the game with. When we met up with Maggie's school friends, we found out William hadn't been half as nice as we thought he was. During the relationship, he had been very controlling of Maggie, and after the breakup, he began stalking her and sending her threatening text messages. She even went to the police to report it, but they told her they couldn't do anything for her at that stage. After that, she met a different guy and started dating him. William found out and, well, took matters into his own hands. Thinking back at this, the worst part of this all just came to mind. When we put flowers at the scene of the crime, we stood around for a few minutes, contemplating whether or not we should knock on the door and personally give her mother our condolences, given that we kind of knew her as well. We decided against it, given that we might unintentionally remind her mother that Maggie's online connections ultimately cost her her life. As soon as we got back to our car, we saw Maggie's front door open. Out of the door came her mother with Maggie's younger sister. I knew at that time that Maggie had a younger sister, but I didn't know that she was only 6 or 7. I fucking lost it when I saw her little head hanging down while grabbing hold of her mother, scared to go around the corner to face all the drawings and flowers people had left there. In writing this post, I found a very recent article that said William is most likely going to prison for 20 years. Honestly, William, I fucking hope you never make it out of there. Hey everyone, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to True Scary Stories episode 90. Edging ever closer to that 100 episodes. I should probably do something special to celebrate that. Probably do what I did with episode 50. You know, same idea, just a bit longer. Well, I've got a couple of weeks to think about that. Probably go by before I know it though. Thank you so much for all the good feedback you gave me on yesterday's second Pokemon video. These things are actually proving more popular than I thought. I've been playing the game myself quite a bit, but well, I'm all out of balls at this point. Pokeballs. I'm all out of Pokeballs at this point. And there's only one Pokestop near where I live. A gym quite near that, of course, as well. But that's the only one I've found so far. You don't really get many from it. And I just rebel at the idea of spending money to acquire more. I'll probably go for a wander at some point. I'm sure I'll find some more. Okay. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.